I just got my new black aprons. Ooh, styling. Hi guys, I'm Michelle Mendoza. Welcome to Mendoza Makes. Today I'm going to show you how to make pumpkin pie. So you can totally make pumpkin pie out of pumpkin. I know that sounds silly, but you can use actual pumpkin to make it. I'm going to go the easy route this time and use the canned stuff. You can go with a graham cracker crust, which is fairly easy, or you can make a traditional pie crust. I love traditional pie crusts, and I have a really good recipe for it from Bon Appetit. I'll put that in the description so you guys can get the recipe too. It's a little bit of extra work than the graham cracker crust, but it's so worth it. Okay, so I forgot the apple cider vinegar for the crust. I could use regular vinegar. See, this is where we find stuff out. Gotta use what you got. So what happens when you cook pastries, pie crust, things that are like croissants and such that are super flaky, what happens in the oven is the water in the butter evaporates from the heat, leaving behind these little pockets of air, which is the flaky part. So distributing the butter evenly throughout the dough will make a good evenly flaky pastry. So I'm cutting my butter into kind of thin cubes so that they're easier for me to tear. So I'm just gonna tear them with my fingers and push them into the flour. This is messy and it's okay. Just get messy, commit to it. If you're the person that doesn't want to put your hands in your food, get over it. I actually find it really satisfying to just mush this around and tear it up. It's really nice. Okay, so now that my butter is all cubed and in the bowl, I'm gonna just start tearing pieces of butter and pushing them into the flour of my fingers, like this. And you would think that it would be super sticky, but when it gets covered in flour, it's actually not. I like to break up the big chunks by just like squeezing it through my fist like this. You can tear it with your fingers like this. However you want to do it, but the goal is to break this up so that it ends up being a shaggy dough. And it's okay to have butter chunks in here. That's just going to help create the fluffy, flaky texture that we're going for. It doesn't need to be homogeneous. Okay, so you can kind of see that it's already starting to come together. I'm just gonna keep working on it. Now this also makes a top crust and a bottom crust. So if you only need a bottom crust for your pumpkin pie, you can just cut the recipe in half. I like to do a full recipe because I like to cut out little designs and put them on top of the pumpkin pie, but you can do it however you like. Now that we've distributed the butter pretty well throughout the flour, there are some big chunks still, but that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and add the vinegar and 3 tablespoons of ice water. Okay, so now we're gonna work this into the dough. It's going to come together more because the moisture is going to hold the flour together better than just the butter. It's gonna get a little bit sticky, just keep working it. Kind of just push it together. See how when I push it together, it stays together? That's what you want. This is why it's nice to have a nice wide bowl. You can really get in there. You can see like it's come together a lot more, but it's still quite crumbly. It's still coming apart in these pieces. That's all right. I'm just gonna keep working on it. Once it comes together in a pretty well-sized dough, I'm going to divide it in half into 2 discs, pretty flat, flatten them down, and cover them in plastic wrap. I'm just kind of using the side of the bowl to make a disc shape with this. So one's gonna be the top and one's gonna be the bottom. You also don't want to work on this for too long because you don't want the heat from your hands to warm up the butter. Okay, so now I'm going to plastic wrap these and stick them in the fridge for at least 1 hour. You can make them ahead of time as well, and they can keep in the fridge for several days, or if you like to have just random pie all the time, you can make the discs and then put them in the freezer and they'll keep for a few months. If I was saving these for a few months and I didn't intend to use them right away, I would probably write a date on here with just a dry erase marker so that I remembered when I made these. So you can see this one is still kind of cracky, and if I broke it apart, it would be crumbly. That's okay, but I want it to be one solid piece of dough, so I'm pushing it together and keeping it together, and when I lift it, being very careful to keep a little bit of pressure on it so that it stays together. And then of course the plastic wrap will keep it together. And I'm wrapping it pretty tightly. There we go. So because I plan on using this right away, I'm just gonna let it sit in the fridge for about an hour and then we'll make the filling. Seems like a good time for a puppy break! Oh my god! Oh my god! You want me to throw it? Okay, I'll do it.
One hour later.
So I made myself a cup of apple cider and brown sugar bourbon. I call it fall in a cup. It's delicious if you want to try it. Okay, so before I start working on the dough, I'm gonna do the filling so that once the dough is done, I can just put the filling in and put it in the oven. Remember to shake this. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake up. Evaporated milk. Is pretty good. So I'm gonna set this aside. Okay, now I'm gonna start working on rolling out my dough. I got it from the fridge, it's nice and cold. You don't want this to warm up too much. You want the butter to stay cold just like we did in the first half of the dough. So I'm only going to take one disc out of the fridge for now and leave the other one in there while I'm working on this one. This one's gonna be the bottom of the pie crust. Now it's pretty stiff because it's been sitting in the fridge, so it's really kind of hard and cold. That's okay. Just start rolling it out with your rolling pin. Put some pressure. And if the edges start to crack, that's all right. Just put them back together. You want to try to use as little flour for this as possible. I probably actually use too much here. I'll scoop it to the side. That's fine. This will take a while, so just be patient. It's okay. See, this like little piece came off. I'm just gonna push it back together. No big deal. When I use my rolling pin to try to make a circle with pizza or pie, the circle is kind of hard to do, but what I found works for me is if I do, you know, spread it out like this a little bit and then turn the dough and do it the other way a little bit. Sometimes I'll go like this. But to make the actual like curve part, what I do is I keep this pretty much in the same spot. And if I want to curve this side, I'll put more pressure with my hand, push down on this side while I'm rolling like this, keeping this in the same spot so that it's only rolling like this to help me make a curve. Then when it's about the size of my pie plate, I'm just gonna make sure that it'll fit. And you want it to go over the edges just a little bit. So it needs to be a little bit bigger in some of these areas, so I'm gonna keep rolling. Okay, that's about good. So now the trick is getting it from the counter onto the pie plate without breaking the dough, because as you can see, it's pretty crumbly. And if you do have a crack while you're moving it, just push it back together like you've been doing on the counter in the pie plate. Just do the same thing. So what I like to do, or a trick that I have learned, is you can put your rolling pin like this on the edge of the dough and then kind of pull the dough onto the rolling pin, using the rolling pin to kind of support it a little bit. Oh, mine is super crumbly. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, so and then you roll the dough back with the rolling pin, like this. And then you get your pie plate, and basically what you do is unroll it on the pie plate. So now I'm gonna go the other way. Ta-da! And now I'm just going to push it down in there. See that crack? That's fine. I'm just gonna push it back together. Kind of just work on it and put it where you want it to be. What I'm gonna do now is cut off the extra around the plate and then form a little crust around. I'm gonna take a sharp knife and just at this angle, I'm gonna rest my knife against the glass edge and just make a little scissoring motion. That's pretty cleaned up. And save these because you can use them to make little decorations on top. Draw it first with a chopstick. And now we can put our filling in.
One hour later.
Shing, sparkle, sparkle.
So I got my pie out of the oven and it's been cooling for a while. It's cool to the touch. It's not really hot anymore, but the bottom is still kind of warm, so I don't want to cut into it quite yet. I think it's kind of late right now, and so I think we're gonna have to wait till tomorrow to try it.
The next day.
Okay, so I left the pie sitting in the fridge overnight, and now I'm gonna cut into it and see how it tastes. Ooh. Ta-da! I did also make some homemade whipped cream, which is really easy. It's just 3 ingredients and you just whip it up into a frenzy. If you have a stand mixer, you can do that even easier. Just turn the stand mixer on really high and leave it until it's stiff like whipped cream. I'll put the recipe in the description if you want that. Soft, fluffy whipped cream. Alright, let's try this. That's just a crust, but the crust is flaky and buttery. That's good crust. That's good pumpkin pie. I don't want to toot my own horn, but boop, boop. So I thought I would make this my first video on my channel because it's an easier recipe. Thanksgiving is coming. I'm planning to do the 12 days of Cookie-Miss, as I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna do a range of really easy beginner recipes and maybe some more advanced recipes. If that's interesting to you, hit the subscribe button. I'm gonna be putting those out next month in December. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna go eat pie now. Bye. What makes flaky pie crust is cold butter. When you mix throughout the mixture of flour and... That doesn't make any sense. What am I trying to say? Oh, I am making a mess. I might legitimately eat this entire pie. Why do we wait for Thanksgiving to have pumpkin pie? Just have it all the time. I should make this all the time. Well, that was good.